Hello and welcome to Owning the Narrative. I am Bulow. The show will feature the top news of the week, complete with my observations, and even a little bit of sarcasm thrown in. The top news stories will be taken from my morning news briefings that I write on the Rick Bulow New Media blog every weekday morning. If you go on to like what you see, smash that thumbs up button. And now, let's go right into the news. On Friday morning, the House Republicans had a vote for their conference chair after kicking Liz Cheney out as conference chair, and they elected Elise Stefanik. And I have a couple of articles on that, so here you go, Elise Stefanik. This from a site called reportdoor.com. Elise Stefanik wins GOP conference chair vote to replace Cheney. Says House Republicans approved Representative Elise Stefanik to their number 3 leadership position Friday, officially voting her into the post after Liz Cheney was forced out this week. Stefanik's win of 134 to 46 was nearly guaranteed before the vote took place, even given that she went to the meeting with former President Donald Trump's endorsement and without a serious contender. Representative Chip Roy of Texas had failed to launch a bid, but failed to gain traction. Representative Mike Johnson of Louisiana, who serves as vice chair of the House GOP conference, was also reportedly interested in the role, but did not end up pursuing a challenge. The New York Republican, who previously chaired the Moderate Tuesday group and saw a rise in prominence as one of Trump's top defenders during the first impeachment proceedings, locked down key endorsements easily with former President Trump. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy of California, House Republican Steve Scalise of Louisiana, and Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio voicing their support for her candidacy. Stefanik was nominated for the position by freshman Representative Ashley Hinson of Iowa, whom she helped get elected. Roy, meanwhile, was elected by House Freedom Caucus member Ken Buck of Utah. The 36-year-old lawmaker began to rev votes in the days ahead of Cheney of Wyoming's ouster, securing support from the majority of the conference before any competitors hopped into the race. While she received more permanent endorsements, a sizable number of conservatives expressed concerns about the New York Republicans' voting record, which was more moderate than Cheney's, arguing that it could hinder her ability to speak for the conference. This prompted Roy to get into the race, who secured endorsements from a number of conservative advocacy groups, including Covered Rose. Cheney was removed Wednesday morning from her leadership position for her focus on criticizing Trump. Her ouster by members of her own conference is an extremely rare move, one which highlights the 45th president's leadership in the Republican Party. She survived an attempt to oust her from leadership in February after her vote to impeach the Justice Party president. Her standing with GOP colleagues weakened in the months that followed, though, as members grew frustrated with her continued comments regarding the former president and the January 6th Capitol riot. Her split with McCarthy on the scope of a 9/11-style commission on the riot, as well as her revealing exclusively to the Post that she was mulling a 2024 White House bid, also grew the ire of her colleagues. Asked by reporters for reaction in the immediate aftermath of her removal, Cheney said she believed that what had happened was an indication of where the Republican Party is, and I think that the party is in a place where we've got to bring it back. The nation needs a strong Republican Party. The nation needs a party that is based upon fundamental principles of conservatism, and I am committed and dedicated to ensuring that that's how this party goes forward, and I plan to lead the fight to do that, she continued. I will do everything I can to ensure that the former president never again gets anywhere near the Oval Office. And I'm interested in seeing what Representative Stefanik's going to do as far as conference leader or that is to say conference chair is concerned. Because I mean, I've not heard too much of her in the past, but she does appear to be a rising star in the Republican Party. There's also this from the New York Post, and it says Representative Stefanik wins GOP conference chair vote to replace Liz Cheney. By the way, all of these articles are Friday. I was going to get to them, but I remember that there was a convention of states thing that I wanted to get to as well. So I postponed the Stefanik victory until today. Anyway, House Republicans approved of Representative Elise Stefanik to their number 3 leadership Friday, officially voting her into the post after Representative Liz Cheney was forced out this week. The 134 to 46 vote for Stefanik of New York was nearly guaranteed before the vote took place. Pretty much some of what I had read regarding or from the site reportdoor.com. However, there are a couple of new paragraphs in this that were not. Stefanik told reporters following her written, "Listen, the Republican Party is a Big Ten party, and my district is a story of growth for the Republican Party. My district voted for President Obama by double digits and voted for President Trump and myself by double digits. We have worked to grow the Republican Party. Nancy Pelosi has the slimmest majority in our generation. We're going on offense and are going to win back the majority in 2022. This is about being united. I'm a proud conservative Republican, and I will fight for the Republican conference." And it pretty much says a few other things here. Now, what's interesting here also is, as was reported on Report Door, there was another person who had nominated Stefanik, but in the New York Post article, it says that Stefanik was nominated to the position by Representative John Katko of New York. So I find that to be intriguing with that. It says both Stefanik and Roy laid out their cases as to why they believe they were best qualified for the job during a candidate forum on Thursday evening. A number of GOP lawmakers, including Representatives Lauren Boebert of Colorado and Ralph Norman of South Carolina, raised concerns during Friday meeting about the process leadership took in replacing Cheney. Argued that the vote was scheduled too quickly, not allowing for enough time for other candidates to emerge. Trump, who took aim at Roy for getting into the race, signaling he would support a primary against the Texas Republican, congratulated Stefanik on a win shortly after the vote was called. Congratulations to Elise Stefanik for a big and overwhelming victory. The House GOP is united and the Make America Great Again movement is strong, he said in a statement. Cheney, the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, was removed Wednesday morning from her leadership post for a focus on criticizing Trump. Her ouster by members of her own conference is an extremely rare move. And it goes on to say that, the other article is pretty much went on to say just what the Report Door article said. So let's go right into the Daily Caller article. And it says House Republicans elect Elise Stefanik as conference chair after ousting Liz Cheney. House Republicans voted Friday to elect New York Representative Elise Stefanik to the conference chair position after ousting Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney. Stefanik was elected to be the third-ranking House Republican after Cheney was removed from her leadership position by a voice vote Wednesday. Behind closed doors, Republicans voted Cheney out as the third-ranking House Republican. Texas Representative Chip Roy came in second place with 46 votes. I am truly honored and humbled to win the support of my colleagues to serve as the House Chair, as the House Republican Conference Chair. House Republicans are united in our focus to fight on behalf of the American people to save our country from the radical socialist Democrat agenda of President Biden and Nancy Pelosi, Stefanik said in a statement after the vote. I also want to thank President Trump for his support. He is a critical part of our Republican team, Stefanik said shortly after being elected House GOP conference chair. Former President Donald Trump slammed Cheney throughout the week, saying she should be ousted from House leadership and replaced by Stefanik. After the vote, Trump released a statement congratulating Stefanik. Congratulations to Elise Stefanik for a big and overwhelming victory. The House GOP is united, and the Make America Great Again movement is strong, Trump said in the statement. Sahil Kapoor tweeted out, Stefanik wins. The final vote for House Republican conference chair per a source in the room. Stefanik won 34, Roy 46, Fox 1, Jordan 1, CMR 1, President 9. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy sent a letter on Monday to Republicans in Congress saying there will be a vote to replace Cheney, which occurred Tuesday morning. Having heard from so many of you in recent days, it's clear we need to make a change. As such, you should anticipate a vote on recalling the conference chair this Wednesday. McCarthy wrote in the letter. Now, Cheney, who was up for re-election in 2022, has continued to face criticism for voting in favor of impeaching former President Donald Trump. The Wyoming Republican Party censured her in February over her replacement vote. Since impeachment, Cheney has continued to be vocal about her disdain of the former president. McCarthy criticized Cheney before Tuesday interview, saying she has real problems. And yes, she does. It'll be interesting to see just who will primary Liz Cheney for the Wyoming seat in her district come 2022, but that's around about I'd say about a year and about a year and 5 days or 5 months away. And there's this from NBCnews.com. Says Elise Stefanik selected House Republican chair replacing ousted Liz Cheney by Rebecca Shabbat and Haley Tablet. House Republicans on Friday elected Republican Representative Elise Stefanik of New York as their conference chair, replacing Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney, who was ousted on Wednesday for a public rebuke of former President Donald Trump. Texas Representative Chip Roy unsuccessfully challenged Stefanik, who has a moderate voting record, arguing that she was not conservative enough and expressing frustration by her coronation. Stefanik became a vocal supporter of Trump in recent years. Stefanik won 134 to 46 in a secret ballot. In a brief press conference after the vote, the new leadership team claimed that their conference is unified. Stefanik thanked Trump for his support. He is a critical part of our Republican team, she said. The American people are suffering under the far-left radical socialist policies of President Joe Biden and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. In just over 100 days, we have an economic crisis, we have a border crisis, and we have a national security crisis. Now, asked if Trump is the leader of the GOP, Stefanik said, I believe that the voters determine the leader of the Republican Party, and President Trump is the leader that they look to. I support President Trump. Voters support President Trump. He is an important voice in our Republican Party, and we look forward to working with him. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy of California told reporters that the leadership team has a lot of work to do because the policies of Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden are destroying this nation. After delivering a speech at a Republican candidate forum on Thursday, Stefanik tweeted, Thank you to my colleagues in the Republican conference for the opportunity to participate in today's forum. Great questions from all members and great discussion with Chip. A productive forum for the House GOP team. House Republicans ousted Cheney from the number 3 position in leadership Wednesday during a closed-door meeting after she voted to impeach Trump for his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. and rebuked him for what she called it, his big lie that the 2020 presidential election was stolen. Following her removal, Cheney said she remained committed to helping restore her party, calling the GOP's embrace of Trump's election falsehoods an ongoing threat, and adding that silence is not an option. Right now, I am very focused on making sure that our party becomes again a party that stands for truth and stands for fundamental principles that are conservative. Cheney said in an interview with NBC's Today Show, adding that Trump must not ever again be anywhere near close to the Oval Office. Before the vote Friday, Cheney spoke to New Hampshire Today Radio about her plans to rebuild the party. She said that they have to attract back voters who have left us in 2020 and reiterated that we have to be willing to say the 2020 election was not stolen and the former president is lying when he tells you it was. Just as she did during the NBC interview, Cheney again dodged a question about running for president in 2024 and did not rule out a bid. So it'll be interesting to see just where the Republican Party goes from here. You know, it'll also be interesting to see just what will happen with the House leadership during all this, and also interesting to see what happens with Cheney from here on in. Leave a comment below what you think about this whole incident of the Republicans voting Liz Cheney out as conference chair and voting Stefanik in. You know, do you like Elise Stefanik? Do you think she'll do a good job? Leave your comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Last week I talked about Bill Gates' divorce from Melinda Gates that's pending in court, and also Bill Gates' relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. There's a little bit more to that than meets the eye, and I have a few articles on that right here. This coming from the Western Journal.com, and it's a report that says Bill Gates had a much closer relationship with Jeffrey Epstein than was previously revealed. And the report claims that for about 3 years, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates would hang out with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The study report by the Daily Beast, based entirely on unnamed sources, claimed that Epstein offered Gates advice about getting out of his marriage with his wife Melinda. The couple announced earlier this month that they were divorcing. The report claimed that Gates told Epstein his marriage was toxic. Gates in turn tried to counsel Epstein about his public image, which suffered a serious blow in 2008 after he pled guilty to soliciting an underage girl for sex. According to the Daily Beast, Epstein died in Manhattan prison in August 2019. His death has been ruled a suicide. The topic of Epstein working for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was discussed. The report said the billionaire met Epstein dozens of times, beginning in 2011 and continuing through to 2014, most at the financier's Manhattan home, a substantially higher number than had previously been reported, according to the Daily Beast. Now, Gates found freedom in Epstein's lair, where he met a rotating cast of bold-faced names and discussed worldly events in between rounds of jokes and gossip. The report said, calling it a men's club atmosphere that irritated Melinda. The Daily Beast report characterized the tech guru's attendance at Epstein's events as a way of seeking refuge from his wife. It's not an overstatement. Going to Jeffries was a respite from his marriage. It was a way of getting away from Melinda. The report quoted a source who said it was one of the people who was at several of the meetings as saying, the source called Epstein and Gates very close. The Daily Beast reported that Melinda Gates disliked Epstein, and in her opposition to her husband meeting with Epstein eventually ended the two men's connection. A statement from a Gates spokesperson poured cold water on this report. Your characterization of his meetings with Epstein and others about philanthropy is inaccurate, including who participated. Similarly, any claim that Epstein spoke of his marriage or Melinda in a disparaging manner is false. The statement said, Bill never received or solicited personal advice from any kind from Epstein on marriage or anything else. Bill never complained to Melinda or about Melinda or his marriage to Epstein. An unnamed source for the report in the Daily Beast theorized that Gates attended the events because he enjoys talking and ideas and basically agreeing with people, and he can be a really brutal person to argue with. He likes nothing better than to get together and debate or lecture people or tell everyone what he's doing with the polio vaccine. He has an ability, unlike any other person I've ever met, to lecture to a table of people without stopping for an hour. Anyone that gave him a stage for performance and said, "Bill, come talk to us about what you're passionate about," that would be something that he would enjoy. However, when publicity following Epstein's death revealed that the tech mogul had at one time been pals with Epstein, Melinda Gates began putting the wheels in motion for the divorce that was announced this month, according to the New York Times. Now, this article mentioned that Daily Beast article. Here is that Daily Beast article. Jeffrey Epstein gave Bill Gates advice on how to end toxic marriage, source said. Bachelor sex offender Jeffrey Epstein gave Bill Gates advice on ending his marriage to Melinda after the Microsoft co-founder complained about her during a series of meetings at the money manager's mansion, according to two people familiar with the situation. Gates used the gatherings of Epstein's $77 million New York courthouse as an escape from what he told Epstein was a toxic marriage, a topic both men found humorous. A person who attended the meetings told the Daily Beast. The billionaire met Epstein dozens of times, starting in 2011 and continuing through to 2014, most at the financier's Manhattan home, a substantially higher number than has been previously reported. Their conversations took place years before Bill and Melinda Gates announced this month that they were splitting up. Gates in turn encouraged Epstein to rehabilitate his image in the media following his 2008 guilty plea for soliciting a man for prostitution, and discussed Epstein becoming involved with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The people familiar with the matter said Gates found freedom in Epstein's lair, where he made a rotating cast of bold-faced names, and discussed worldly issues in between rounds of jokes and gossips, a men's club atmosphere that irritated Melinda. It's not an overstatement. Going to Jeffries was a respite from his marriage. It was a way of getting away from Melinda. One of the people who was at several of the meetings said, adding that Epstein and Gates were very close. A representative for Bill Gates told the Daily Beast your characterization of his meetings with Epstein and others about philanthropy is inaccurate, including who participated. Similarly, any claim that Gates spoke of his marriage with Melinda in a disparaging manner is false. The spokesperson disputed the number of times Epstein and Gates met and said that the two men never discussed Epstein getting involved with the foundation. Bill never received or solicited personal or no advice of any kind from Epstein on marriage or anything else. Bill never complained about Melinda or his marriage to Epstein. A representative for Melinda did not respond to a request for comment for this report. As the Daily Beast exclusively reported, Melinda Gates was furious over Bill's relationship with Epstein and was put out by the Keep It financier upon meeting him in September 2013 after the couple accepted an award at a New York City hotel. Melinda's anger, people familiar with the matter said, eventually led to the demise of Bill and Epstein's friendship. The Wall Street Journal recently reported Melinda Gates consulted divorce lawyers in 2019, or October of 2019, around the time that it was publicly revealed that Bill met with Epstein, who had died by suicide in jail several months earlier, multiple times in the past. On May 3rd, the high-powered couple announced that they were ending their 27-year marriage in a statement that read in part, "We no longer believe we can go together. We no longer believe we can go together as a couple in this next phase of our lives. We ask for space and privacy for our family as we begin to navigate this next life." In her petition for divorce, Melinda said her marriage is irretrievably broken and indicated that the couple had settled on a plan to divide their vast assets outside the courtroom. Last week, the New York Post reported that Gates told his golfing buddies he was in a loveless marriage, which had been over for some time, while people described Epstein as a sore spot in the couple's relationship. But Epstein wasn't the couple's only point of contention. On Sunday, the New York Times reported that Gates allegedly made advances on women who worked at Microsoft and his foundation while he was married to Melinda. The Journal followed up with its own report, revealing that Gates resigned from Microsoft's board in 2020 amid an internal investigation into an alleged sexual relationship with a company engineer who came forward in 2019. There was an affair almost 20 years ago, which ended amicably, a Gates spokeswoman told the Journal, adding that his departure from the board wasn't related to the relationship. This is a very long article, but the link is down in the description if you want to take a look at it. But yeah, I mean, just one thing adds to another, adds to another, and adds to another. So these are just basic rungs on a ladder, and who knows? I mean, if Epstein has this relationship with Bill Gates, who knows who else he may have the same relationship with. There have been rumors that he and Bill Clinton had this type of relationship, or among others, Prince Philip of England, probably a couple of others in the royal family, just who knows, but it is something to look into, most definitely. Now, along these lines, it was actually thought that, or it was actually rumored rather, that Bill Gates thought Jeffrey Epstein was his ticket to a Nobel Prize. This coming from Yahoo News. Bill Gates thought Jeffrey Epstein was his ticket to a Nobel Prize, like Staffer says. Bill Gates enjoyed holding court at Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan mansion, allegedly seeking refuge from his marriage and talking with a sex offender circle of high-profile dinner guests about philanthropy and other worldly topics. But the Microsoft mogul may have been angling for another perk by networking with Epstein. Gates hoped the well-connected privilege could help him secure the Nobel Peace Prize, one former Gates Foundation employee told the Daily Beast. This person said members of the Foundation's communications team were alerted to Gates' relationship with Epstein and were told it was a maneuver to try to get himself a Nobel Peace Prize. They said that the tech mogul had even kept some employees on call on Prize Day in years past just in case he was awarded the distinction. We were aware of things that were potential reputational risks for the foundation and the co-chairs, but Melinda, said the former employee. Even back then, people knew this guy wasn't squeaky clean, the person said, referring to Epstein. He, referring to Gates, thought that Jeffrey would be able to help him, that he would know the right people, or some kind of way to massage things, so he could get the Nobel Peace Prize, which is what Bill wants more than anything else in the world. The staffer said. I think he was ultimately disappointed that it didn't work out, the person added. Now, Epstein was known for cultivating a Rolodex of elite contacts from around the globe. Billionaires, royals, celebrities, politicians, and prominent scientists, including Nobel laureates Frank Wilczek, Gerald Edelman, and Mary Galmanin. The money manager also opened various nonprofits over the years to steer millions into his friends' projects and to fund research at institutions including the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Harvard University. Reporters continue taking Epstein's money despite widespread reports of his abuse of underage girls and young women. The former staffers claim that Gates thought Epstein was his ticket to the prestigious prize, as fuel to an original newspaper's report last year that highlighted a 2013 meeting with Gates, Epstein, and the Norwegian Nobel Committee's chairman at the time, Thorbjorn Jagland. A spokesperson for Bill Gates, however, denied that the billionaire philanthropist was seeking Epstein's help for obtaining the award. While a Nobel Prize would certainly be a great honor, it is false to state that Bill Gates was obsessed with the honor, set it as a goal, or campaigned for it in any way, the spokesperson told the Daily Beast. If Epstein had a plan or motivation to insert himself into any processes related to any awards or honors on behalf of Gates, neither Gates nor anyone he works with was aware of his intentions, and they would have rejected any offers for assistance. Again, this is another long article. Links down in the description if you want to take a peek at it. But yeah, so things are just coming up. Not so much roses for Bill Gates. And there's this from the Sun. Again, this is another long article, so I'll read some of it. Links down in the description. This is Microsoft scandal, Bill Gates affair latest. Microsoft founder's relationship with Epstein and secret life before Melinda divorce. A New York Times report released this week reveals that Bill Gates hit on female Microsoft staffers multiple times. Bill Gates had also developed a reputation for questionable contact in work-related settings, the report states. That is, attracting new scrutiny amid the breakup of one of the world's richest, most powerful couples. According to the report, Gates has two of employees out to dinner, a proposition that made them both uncomfortable. The revelation comes after a letter penned to Microsoft's board from a woman claiming a former affair with billionaire Bill Gates. Demanded wife Melinda read it. While the identity of the woman is unknown, the fling is said to have lasted several years. Bill Gates reportedly asked Jeffrey Epstein for advice on how to end his toxic marriage with his wife Melinda amid reports of his alleged affair. The Microsoft co-founder had a number of meetings at the pedophile's $77 million New York mansion, where he used to complain about his wife, according to reports. The news came after it was revealed Gates ended his relationship with Epstein after he creeped out his wife Melinda. Gates and Epstein's relationship was publicized in 2018. 7 years after their first meeting, they claimed their meetings focused on philanthropy. It was reported Gates had an affair with the female staffer and asked employees out while he was married. Board members are said to have carried out an investigation into the billionaire's romantic relationship with a Microsoft engineer in late 2019, after she claimed in a letter that she had a sexual relationship with Gates for a number of years. The relationship was deemed by the board to be inappropriate. People familiar with the events told the Wall Street Journal. Like I said, this is a long article, so the link's down in the description if you want to take a further read on it. But yeah, things are getting creeped out. You know, there's a lot more to the whole Jeffrey Epstein mystery. There's a lot more to Bill Gates than meets the eye, and you know, I'm going to be here talking about it, and there are many other people that are talking about it. I like your thoughts on this as well. In the comment below, Lee, tell me what you think about Bill Gates' relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. You know, what do you think about both of them in particular? What do you think about both of them separately? And I'll see you in the next video. Now, with many of the states now not mandating masks anymore, there are some places which do allow masks within the state. There's also a mask revolt going on in Congress. This coming from the Washington Examiner. And it says, mask revolt, a dozen Republicans protest Pelosi and show full faces on House floor. At least 8 House Republicans went against House rules that require wearing masks on the House floor on Tuesday evening in defiance of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, refusing to lift the mandate in the chamber despite updated new masking guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, saying that vaccinated people do not need to wear masks indoors. At one point, Texas Representatives Louis Gohmert and Brad Van Duyne, Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Florida Representative Ryan Mast, Virginia Representative Bob Good, Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie, Illinois Representative Mary Miller, and South Carolina Representative Ralph Norman gathered near the well of the House, chatting maskless in between votes. North Carolina Representative Madison Cawthorn, also part of that conversation, eventually joined them in taking off his mask. This is the set of our national government. What we do has implications that go beyond here, Mast told the Washington Examiner. It leads to what you see going on in companies, national companies, things like that, thinking that they can force their employees to vaccinate if they don't want to, or share their medical information if they don't want to. When you have the person third in line for the presidency thinking that they can find us by not wearing a mask. When we've been vaccinated, what we do here has ripples. Texas Representative Chip Boy, Florida Representative Greg Stubbe, and Iowa Representative Mariannette Miller Meeks were also spotted without masks on the floor. By going maskless on the House floor, the members risk incurring a fine taken out of their congressional salaries. The House adopted a rule in January to fine members $500 for the first offense of not wearing a mask and $2,500 for a second offense. On Thursday evening, the House's attending physician sent an email to Capitol staff with updated mask guidance, saying that fully vaccinated people do not need to wear masks in most areas of the House out of the Capitol complex, but the mask requirement will not change in the hall of the House, the House chamber, until all members and floor staff are fully vaccinated. Pelosi also said that she has no intention of updating the rule. Texas Representative Randy Weber told the Washington Examiner that he wore his mask on the floor most of the time during votes on Tuesday evening, adding that those who go maskless will get a free warning the first time rather than a $500 fine. You exercise your constitutional rights, and the second time you get fined for it. Green posted a selfie of herself and some of the other members on the floor without a mask, adding, "Masks are oppressive and nothing but a political tool and the oppression." There's the tweet that Marjorie Taylor Greene had posted on May 18, 2011, with the hashtag Free Your Face. Democrat Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland at one point approached Massey, Bobbitt, and Green on the House floor and chatted for several minutes. "I was telling my friends that 100% of the Democrats have been vaccinated. If we had 100% of the members vaccinated, we could all take our masks off, so we should be protesting them," Raskin told reporters. "We can do it. I mean, really, I think that they're doing the House a disservice, doing the country a disservice." Massey said that the conversation was friendly and that Raskin, a law professor, just likes to debate stuff. Massey decided or declined to say whether they would keep wearing masks on the House floor in the future. "I don't think they can keep this up for more than another month," Massey said. "It's getting more and more ridiculous. Go watch us in the hallways in Cannon or in Rayburn. The same people in the chamber who are wearing the masks, the Democrats who are admonishing us to wear masks and not wearing them in the hallway." Democrat Representative Jahana Hayes of Connecticut and Mass later got into a disagreement outside about whether she told some of the maskless members to be ashamed of themselves. Scott Wong tweeted out the debate over masks just extended outside the Capitol between Rep. Jahana Hayes and Rep. Brian Mast. A spokesperson for Norman said he had been vaccinated and that Norman believes Speaker Pelosi's rules are neither rooted in science nor common sense. In fact, they're setting a bad example for the rest of the nation. Good added in a tweet, "I'm being threatened with a fine from the Democrat House leadership, but I truly believe I need to lead by example. We Americans need to take off our masks and assert our freedoms. I am being threatened with a fine from the Democrat House leadership, but I believe that I need to be led by example, or that I need to lead by example." That in a tweet from Bob Good for Congress. After votes were completed, 8 of the members posed for a photo outside the Capitol. "Best $500 I ever spent," Mast joked to his colleagues. Emily Brooks tweeted out, "Post-maskless protest photo op." And there's that. So, yeah, there are many states that are not having any more mask mandates, which is good because it is a way to get back to normal. I know I myself am not vaccinated, nor will I intend to do that, because it's just my right. Now, I do wear a neck gaiter, I do admit that, but that's as far as I'll go. Some of the masks, and I have one right here, it's these ear loops tend to get a little irritating, especially around the back of the ears, so that's why I personally don't wear them. Rather, I do have my mask gaiter here, or neck gaiter, this neck gaiter of the Punisher, which I can step up and over my mouth, and I also have an all white and an all black one, as well as an all blue one. So neck gaiters, yes. Ear loop masks, not so much. At least for me, people can do what they want. That's why I like these gaiters. And there's more on this. This coming from the Washington Times, and it says Republicans rebel against Pelosi, reject House mask mandate. Republican House members began a campaign of civil disobedience Tuesday against the Democrat-led chamber's mask mandate. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has kept in place the House rule requiring members to wear masks on the floor, despite the CDC announcement last week that fully vaccinated people need not wear them indoors or outdoors. We've had enough. We are refusing to wear our masks on the floor during this vote in spite of Pelosi's threat to take $500 from each of us. Her rule is not based on science. Republican Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky tweeted, "All you need to know is the mask rule has only ever applied to members when they can be seen on TV." Mr. Massie continued, "Members can be fined $500 for a first offense and $250 or $2,500 for a second." And Representative Brian Mast for the Republicans said Ms. Pelosi had started enforcing it. "I've been fined $500 by Speaker Pelosi for following CDC guidance. This was never about science. It has always been about power," he wrote on Twitter. Mr. Mast, who earlier in the day said he was done with masks, also retweeted a video of his refusal to put on a mask during the floor debate and his rebuffing a request from the House Sergeant at Arms. Numerous other Republicans joined the campaign. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia took a photo that included Mr. Massie and Republican reps Mary Miller of Illinois and Ralph Newman of South Carolina, all four unmasked and near enough to crowd into a selfie. "Free your face, hashtag free your face, masks are oppressive but nothing but a political tool and the oppression," she wrote. Ms. Greene later appeared in a photo with 7 other lawmakers outside the Capitol building, saying she was proud to join these patriots for a peaceful protest on the House floor against mask mandates. "Free your face," or hashtag free your face. The Senate has never required the members wear a mask, and both Senate Party leaders, Democrat Chuck Schumer of New York and Representative Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, have even stopped wearing a mask voluntarily since the CDC guidance last week. And there's this from BizPack Review. Mask wars in Congress get heated. Time confronts maskless GOP members, gets defiant response. A war has erupted in the halls of Congress because of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's refusal to abide by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's mask guidelines. The war could be seen firsthand in the House chamber on Tuesday as congressional Democrats tried to bully their Republican colleagues into needlessly masking up. Multiple House Republicans, reportedly including but not necessarily limited to Representatives Lauren Boebert, Rev Van Duyn, Louis Gohmert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, Brian Mast, Mary Miller, Ralph Newman, Chip Roy, and Greg Steube refused to wear masks as part of a protest, according to Politico. Around a dozen Republicans refused to wear masks during the evening vote series and strategically stood in the wall of the chamber, which appears on the C-SPAN cameras, and seemed to encourage other members to join in, the outlet reported. At one point, as the Republicans were standing together near the Speaker's podium, a congressional Democrat went over and confronted a few of them, according to Politico's Melanie Zanona, prompting Massie to shout back, "I can't hear you." A heated scene on the House floor just a little bit ago. Around 8 or so Republicans were refusing to wear masks and standing by the wall of the chamber. A Dem member went over and confronted a few of them. Rep. Thomas Massie shouted back, "I can't hear you with your mask on." That by Melanie Zanona, who also tweeted, according to among the Republicans I have spotted refusing to wear masks thus far: Greene, Gohmert, Mary Miller, Van Duyn, Gomit, Massey, Bobert, Norman, Bobert, and Roy. An act of defiance. House members are maskless on floor. Brian Mast, Bobert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Massey, Mary Miller, Beth Van Duen, Greg Stubbe, Chip Roy. At one point, MTG took a selfie of several of the maskless members. $500 fine for first offense, and $2,500 for second. That in a tweet from Manu Raju yesterday. The lawmakers reportedly intend to remain maskless even if they are fined by Pelosi. Fines for being unmasked reportedly range from $500 for the first offense to $2,500 for the second one. The fines are reportedly deducted from salaries. Earlier in the day, Rep. Brian Mast of Florida stood up during a GOP conference meeting and told his colleagues that he's done wearing masks and will refuse to wear them on the House floor going forward, even if it means getting fined, according to Politico. Maryland Rep. Jimmy Raskin also spoke out against Pelosi's mask mandate. If Donald Trump had come out in the beginning and said this is called a patriot mask, and everyone must wear one, otherwise you're on the side of the enemies of the Republican Party, would they all be wearing masks, he reportedly asked. Meanwhile, Green snapped a maskless selfie on the House floor, provoking outrage from mask-obsessed Democrats. Hashtag free your face, masks are oppressive and nothing but a political tool. And the oppression, there's a picture of that in the posted by Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday. But according to Massey, the left's pro-mask zealotry is all bullshit. In tweets posted Tuesday afternoon, he claimed that few in Congress are wearing masks in the hallways or offices. According to him, they're only wearing them while on camera. Let's take a look. Thought America might like to know this. Few congressmen or staff or guards are wearing masks in hallways or offices. Only on the floor for TV. It's all theatrics, folks. We've had enough. We're refusing to wear our masks on the floor during this vote, and in spite of Pelosi's threat to take $500 from each of us. Her rule is not based on science. All you need to know is a mask rule has only ever applied to members when they can be seen on TV. That in another tweet, while this is just an allegation, it does align with Democrats' behavior, particularly the behavior of Pelosi, who talks a sweet game but was exposed as a hypocrite last year. Now, this isn't to say that Republicans also are concerned with appearances. They are, but for vastly different reasons. This is the set of our national government. What we do has implications that go beyond here. Massey noted in a statement to the Washington Examiner. It leads to what you see going on in companies, national companies, things like that, thinking that they can force their companies to vaccinate if they don't want to, or share their medical information if they don't want to. When you have the person 39 for the presidency, thinking that they can fine us for not wearing a mask, when we've been vaccinated. What we do here has ripples, he added. But what explains Democrats' inexplicable desire to remain maskless despite all of them having been vaccinated? Tucker Carlson, the host of Fox News' Tucker Carlson Tonight, speculated that their zealotry is some sort of neurosis. While the great unmasking is finally upon us, but not everyone is happy about it, suddenly in neighborhoods littered with signs about BLM and climate change, we have a new public health emergency on our hands. It's a mental health crisis, he said Tuesday evening. Amazingly, many Americans don't want to stop wearing masks. They want to continue to hide behind paper. Why? There's no science behind this. It's a neurosis, just like obsessive hand washing. But it appears to be spreading fast like its own virus, he added. And there's a link to a video clip on that. And speaking of deranged behavior, Connecticut Representative Johanna Hayes, a Democrat, was spotted wearing a mask while lecturing masks outside in the fresh air. The debate, and here's that tweet from Scott Wong that I mentioned earlier. The debate over masks just extended outside the Capitol between Rep. Johanna Hayes and Rep. Brian Mast. And there's also this from Town Hall. And Reagan McCarthy, group of Republicans refused to wear masks on the House floor. A group of House Republicans protested the chamber's mask mandate on the floor on Tuesday afternoon. Speaker Pelosi has not yet updated guidance on mask wearing on the House floor, despite the new guidance from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. that says that fully vaccinated individuals do not need to wear masks. Not all House members have been vaccinated. Melanie, and of course you have Melanie Zanona's tweet from earlier that show Green, Gomer, Mary Miller, Van Dwing, Gomer, Massey, Norman, Bobbitt, and Roy refusing to wear a mask, and those being the Republicans. The lawmakers liken mask mandates to oppression and a political tool and refuse to comply with the mandate, even in light of the $500 fine for violating the policy. Rep. Massey tweeted out, "We've had enough. We're refusing to wear our masks on the floor during this vote in spite of Pelosi's threat to take $500 from each of us. The rule is not based on science. All you need to know is a mask rule has only ever applied to members when they can be seen on TV." Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted out, hashtag for your face. Masks are oppressive and nothing but a political tool in the oppression. Representative Brian Mast tweeted out, "Why isn't Speaker Pelosi? Apparently, why isn't she wearing a mask?" Representative Lauren Boebert tweeted out, "Speaker Pelosi, your mask mandate is dumb, arbitrary, and outdated. End it." Now it says CNN survey found that all 219 Democrats have been fully vaccinated, while 95 House Republicans are confirmed to be. And that's the article there. Now, like I say, I do wear my neck gaiter. Will I wear it afterward? After all this, I don't know. I mean, there are many other ways to wear the neck gaiter, but so I might just keep it on, just for aesthetic purposes. But leave a comment down below what you think of Speaker Nancy Pelosi's mandate about masks on the House floor. Do you agree with it? Do you agree with the Republicans who refuse to wear masks? Do you wear a mask in your own personal life? Do you agree with that sentiment? And I'll see you in the next video. Yesterday, the U.S. House of Representatives had voted to have a commission on the January 6th Capitol Hill riot, insurrection, peaceful protest, whatever you want to call it. And it was the vote was 252 to 175, 35 Republicans voting with the Democrats in support of the commission. And let's go right into the article. I got this from the Associated Press. House backs commission on January 6th riot over GOP objections. This by Mary Claire Jelinek. The House voted Wednesday to create an independent commission on the deadly January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, sending the legislation to an uncertain future in the Senate as Republican leaders work to stop a bipartisan investigation that is opposed by former President Donald Trump. Democrats say that an independent investigation is crucial to reckoning what happened that day when a rowdy mob of Trump supporters smashed into the Capitol to try to overturn President Joe Biden's victory, modeled after the investigation into the September 11, 2001 attacks. Legislation would establish an independent 10-member commission that would make recommendations by the end of the year for securing the Capitol and preventing another insurrection. The bill passed the House 252 to 175, with 35 Republicans voting with the Democrats in support of the commission, defying Trump and House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy. Trump issued a statement urging Republicans to vote against it, calling the legislation a Democrat trap. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell is trying to prevent defections among his own ranks, echoing McCarthy's opposition in his Senate floor speech Wednesday morning. Both men claimed the bill was partisan, even though membership of the proposed commission would be evenly split among the parties. The January insurrection has become an increasingly fraught topic for Republicans, with a growing number in the party downplaying the severity of the worst attack on the Capitol in more than 200 years, Now, while most Republicans voted against forming the commission, only a few spoke out on the floor against it, and a handful of Republicans who backed the commission spoke forcefully. This is about facts, it's not partisan politics, said New York Representative John Katko, the top Republican on the House Homeland Security Committee, who negotiated who negotiated the legislation with Democrats. He said the American people and the Capitol Police deserve answers and action as soon as possible to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. Republican Representative Fred Upton of Michigan said that January 6th is going to haunt this institution for a long, long time, and that a commission is necessary to find the truth about what happened. He recalled that he heard the shouts, saw the flashbangs, smelled the gas on that sorry day. Democrats grew angry as some Republicans suggested the commission was only intended to smear Trump. Several shared their own memories of the insurrection when rioters brutally beat police, broke in through windows and doors, and sent lawmakers running. 4 of the rioters died, including a woman who was shot and killed by police as she tried to break into the House chamber. A Capitol Police officer collapsed and died after engaging with the protesters, and 2 officers took their own lives in the days after. We have people scaling the Capitol, hitting the Capitol Police with lead pipes across the head, and we can't get bipartisanship. What else has happened in this country? Shouted Representative Tim Ryan, Democrat Ohio, on the floor just before the vote. He said that the GOP opposition is a slap in the face to every rank and file cop in the United States. The vote was yet another test of Republican loyalty to Trump, whose grip on the party remains strong despite his election defeat. House Republicans booted Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney from their leadership last week for her criticism of Trump's false claims, installing a Trump loyalist in her place. Cheney in turn suggested to ABC News that a commission could subpoena McCarthy because he spoke to Trump during the insurrection. House Speaker Democrat Nancy Pelosi of California called McCarthy's opposition to the commission cowardice. She released a February letter from the GOP leader in which he asked for an even split of Democrats and Republican commissioners, equal subpoena power, and no predetermined findings or conclusions. The bipartisan legislation accommodates all 3 of those requests, she said. Leader McCarthy won't take us for an answer, she said. Meanwhile, over in the Senate, McConnell's announcement dimmed the prospects for passage, as Democrats would need at least 10 Republicans to vote with them. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, vowed to force a vote on the bill, charging that Republicans are caving to Trump. Schumer said that the Republicans are trying to sabotage the commission and are drunk off Trump's baseless claim that the election was stolen from him. That false assertion, repeated by the mob as the rioters broke into the Capitol, has been rebuked by numerous courts, by partisan election officials across the country, and Trump's own Attorney General. Like in the House, some Senate Republicans have suggested that they will support the legislation. Utah Senator Mitt Romney said Tuesday that given the violent attack, we should understand what mistakes were made and how we could prevent them from happening again. Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy said he doesn't agree with McConnell that the bill is slanted toward Democrats, and I'm inclined to support it. Maine Senator Susan Collins, a Republican, said that she supports the idea of a commission, but that the House bill would need adjustments. Others have pushed their colleagues to oppose the commission. Missouri Senator Roy Blunt, the top Republican on the Senate Rules Committee, is working on a report with his Democrat colleagues that will include recommendations for security upgrades. He said that an independent investigation would take too long, and frankly, I don't think that there are many gaps to be filled in on what happened on January 6th as it relates to building security. South Dakota Senator John Thune, the number 2 Republican in the Senate, cited concern in the caucus that the investigation could be weaponized politically in the 2022 election cycle. I want our midterm message to be about the kinds of issues that the American people are dealing with, Thune said. It's jobs and wages in the economy, national security, safe streets, strong borders, and those types of issues, and not relitigating the 2020 election. Separately, Wednesday, aides Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat of Maryland, circulated a letter that they said was from a group of around 40 to 50 anonymous U.S. Capitol Police officers who had been speaking with the congressman. It is inconceivable that some of the members we protect would downplay the events of January 6th, the letter reads. It is a privileged assumption for members to have the point of view that it wasn't that bad. The privilege exists because the brave men and women of the USCP protected you, the members. The letter was quickly repudiated by Capitol Police leaders who said the agency doesn't take any position on legislative matters. Raskin said in an interview Wednesday evening that the officers approached his office with a letter and that they and their families have been traumatized about what happened on the 6th. Raskin said they can't believe that there is dissension in the Congress about the simple facts of the insurrection. And that's that. You know, I think at all that, Congress wants a commission to look into the January 6th insurrection, but at the same time, Ted Cruz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and other and most Republicans asked for a commission to look into the election, and yet they got stonewalled. I mean, that's something that I cannot figure out. I mean, rules for me, but not for thee, I guess. Also, I'm thinking maybe this has something to do with the fact that there might be something hidden. What? We don't know, but some people aim to find out. And there's this article from Slate on Mitch McConnell coming out against the Capitol Riot Commission. And it says Mitch McConnell is still hiding from the Capitol mob. Wednesday evening, the House passed a bill that would create an independent commission to investigate the January 6th Capitol attack. 35 Republicans joined all Democrats in a 252 to 175 vote. The bipartisan result came in spite of House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy's decision Tuesday to come out against the bill. Democrats had granted most of the concessions McCarthy had previously asked for, but among McCarthy's excuses for rejecting the deal was that the January 6th Commission would not also be charged with investigating unrelated urban riots last summer. Still, the chances of Congress sending Joe Biden a bill establishing a bipartisan January 6th Commission were very much in doubt. Even while McCarthy was failing to keep his own conference in line, he spent Tuesday and Wednesday making inroads in the Senate, particularly with Republican leader Mitch McConnell. On Tuesday, McConnell's position on the bill was that he would keep his options open. He said that the Republican conference was undecided about the way forward at this point, and that they wanted to read the fine print on the House bill before taking a position. When the House passed the bill and sent it over, they would take a look. Overnight, though, McConnell changed his stance on Wednesday morning, about 12 hours after Donald Trump said in a statement that the discussion over the Democrat trap of the January 6th Commission should be ended immediately. Hopefully, Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy are listening. McConnell announced on the Senate floor that he had made the decision to oppose the House Democrats' slanted and unbalanced proposal for another commission to study the events of January the 6th. Somehow in that brief span of time, the commission had transformed from a course of action worthy of McConnell's consideration into a self-evidently pointless project. It's not at all clear what new facts or additional information yet another commission could lay on top of the existing efforts by law enforcement and Congress, McConnell said. What is clear is that House Democrats have handled this proposal in partisan bad faith from the beginning. He described Democrats as continuing to insist on various other features under the hood that are designed to centralize control over the Commission's process and its conclusions in Democrats' hands. But clearly it was conceivable you could see the Senate Republican Conference pick up their leader's objection into the fine print in real time. South Dakota Senator Mike Rounds, who said on Tuesday that he was interested in the commission and that we clearly had an insurrection on that particular day, and I wanted to be swept under any rug, was singing a new tune on Wednesday after he and other GOP senators met with McCarthy. The Wednesday version of Rounds echoed a concern that McConnell had noted on Tuesday that staff would only be appointed by the Democrat chairman and that Republicans would not have a say in that, and he worried that the December 31st deadline for the commission to finish its business would be unmeetable given how long it would take to set up shop and obtain security clearances for everyone. Maine Senator Susan Collins similarly said, I don't think it's right to have the chairman unilaterally appoint all the staff, and wanted it made extra clear that the commission could not be extended beyond December 31. The complaint about staffing makes no sense at all. The bill's text on staff hiring is identical to that of the bipartisan 9/11 Commission, which no one had a problem with, as well as that of a separate January 6th Commission proposal introduced by House Republicans in January. Now, there is a clearly defined mechanism for Republican appointees on the Commission to prevent the Democrat-appointed chair from filling out the staffing entirely with members of Antifa. The bill text, which is identical in language in the 9/11 Commission bill, and H.R. 275 allows for the hiring of Commission staff by the chair in consultation with the vice chair and in accordance to the rules agreed upon by the Commission. A Republican staffer to the House Homeland Security Committee explained to me. This avoids any unilateral action by the chair by requiring consultation with the vice chair and adherence to the internal commission rules agreed to by the commissioners, now evenly split among D's and R's. The December 31st deadline is a more plausible complaint. Were the bill passed by both chambers and signed into the law today, that would leave the commission just north of 7 months to get appointed, hire staff, get security clearances, begin investigating, issue subpoenas, deal with Stonewall subpoenas, and then write a report. As Lawfare wrote, the current deadline is a recipe for shallowness. It will discourage consensus building and give commissioners an incentive to try to run out the clock. Now, the solution to that, then, would be to extend the deadline much further, perhaps past the election, or to eliminate the deadline. Republican objections instead are coming from both ends. They know that the December 31st deadline doesn't give the commission time to properly do its job, but they also want further assurances that the deadline would be held to. That is, they say the commission is being given too little time, and they want to forbid it from getting more. The investigation timetable isn't the issue. The political timetable is. They don't want Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer mounting a public offensive at them at the end of the year for an extension and casting them like traitors if they refuse to do so. And there's a lot more in this article. The link's down in the description below if you want to take a look at it. And then there's this from the Washington Examiner. Again, links down in the description, so I'll just read some of this. The idea of a 9/11 style commission to focus on the January 6th riots shows no real utility now, except to allow Democrats to dredge up the GOP's lowest point in recent history going into an election cycle. This is not an excuse of former President Donald Trump, who certainly bears some moral responsibility for the riot. There wouldn't have been a riot without his insensitivizing conspiracy theories, along with his unfounded attacks on then Vice President Mike Pence. He's failed to condemn the riot and failed to accept his election defeat. His legacy is permanently stained. But all the bases there have been covered. Trump was impeached and left office in disgrace, even without being convicted by the Senate. Over 400 people have been charged for participating in the riots, and federal prosecutors expect to add at least 100 more to that total. The question of Capitol security has also been covered. A task force led by retired Lieutenant General Russell Honore, who was selected by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, came back with a 13-page report in March on the issue, complete with recommendations for improvement, and the House Oversight Committee held a hearing on the riot last week, after which even CNN concluded that both sides used cherry-picked facts to push incomplete and inaccurate narratives. So what exactly is left? We know Trump bears moral, not legal responsibility for what happened. The actual participants have been legally charged in a await trial. There has already been a review of Capitol security. Is there anything else that the commission could uncover that would truly change those previous outcomes? It's not likely, especially when Republicans would have to sign off on any subpoenas. And there's also this from CNN. It's Trump or the Truth. Title is Capitol Riot, Vote forces Republicans to pick truth or Trump. It's Trump or the Truth. The U.S. House of Representatives vote Wednesday on setting up an independent bipartisan commission to investigate the Capitol insurrection will expose a quandary that now defines the Republican Party. It's the latest twist of a drama stretching from Washington to a sham election audit in Arizona, and in state legislatures passing bills making it tougher to vote. Republicans everywhere are making the same choice, and almost all of them are siding with former President Donald Trump, his false claims of election fraud, and his unchecked assault on U.S. democracy. Only a few brave holdouts are standing firm against the tide and risk sacrificing their careers to stand with their consciences and American Democrat values. The split will play out again on the House floor as the crucial vote takes place. On one side of the dilemma is House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, a California Republican who on Monday came out against a probe that would be likely to condemn the lies and instigation of the 45th president, whose coattails he hopes to ride to the leadership. On the other side of the Truth-Trump divide is Representative Liz Cheney, the former House Republican Conference Chair. The Wyoming lawmaker contradicted the former president's lies and lost her leadership post to Representative Elise Stefanik of New York, whose ambition leaves her with fewer scruples about the truth. Cheney has company with a handful of Republicans in the House and Senate who voted to impeach and convict Trump after he told supporters to fight like hell to halt the certification of his election defeat. The House bill on setting up the commission is still likely to pass given the Democrat majority, and may garner some GOP votes since it is a product of a painfully reached bipartisan deal on the makeup of the deal panel and a mandate. But the familiar choice between truth and lies, the Constitution and Trump, will just move to the Senate. On the other side of the citadel of U.S. democracy, there was a file by Trump supporters on January 6. McCarthy's move prompted Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky to say he'd press pause on whether to support the commission. A day after it appeared there could be sufficient GOP support to enact the bill. His move set up a cliffhanger search by Democrats for the 10 Republican voters they need to make the commission a reality. And a sign of the hidden hand seeking to impose his will on the party even while he is out of office, Trump issued a statement on Tuesday evening telling Republicans not to fall into a Democrat trap. Hopefully Mitch McConnell, Nolan, and Kevin McCarthy are listening, Trump wrote. This was written yesterday at 2:38. So before definitely before that vote. Have the link down in the description. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot to this that meets the eye, and hopefully things will come out. Who knows just what will happen over in the Senate. Will they get the 10 votes? Will they not get the 10 votes? But leave a comment down in the comment section below. What do you think about the commission? What did you think about the January 6th attack on the Capitol? Do you support McCarthy or do you support Pelosi, Schumer, or McConnell? And I'll see you in the next video. Yesterday, Israel and Hamas agreed to a ceasefire, but will it last for long? Let's find out what the columnists say. We have this coming from the White House dossier and Rebecca Koffler. Biden grabs credit from Egypt for Israel-Hamas ceasefire. What happened was Netanyahu ignored Biden for days as the president begged him to stop bombing Hamas in Gaza. Then finally Egypt brokered a ceasefire, and then Biden claimed at the White House to claim credit. From a piece Keith wrote for Fox News, President Biden sought to take control for a ceasefire Thursday between Israel and Hamas. Despite results that it was Egypt that brokered the peace, Biden, who spoke at the White House, included a sentence in his remarks commending Egyptian officials for their critical role in ending the fighting. But he repeatedly emphasized the intensive work he said was done by his own administration. Over the past 11 days, I spoke with the Prime Minister 6 times. I've also spoken with President Abbas and the Palestinian Authority more than once, and part of our intense diplomatic engagement, Biden said. And I want to thank the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, our National Security Advisor, and everyone on our team for their incredible efforts to bring this about. This outcome that we're about to see We've held intensive high-level discussions hour by hour, literally, Egypt, the Palestinian Authority, and other Middle Eastern countries, with the name of avoiding this sort of prolonged conflict we've seen in previous years when the hostilities have broken out. And that's that from Rebecca Koffler over at the White House dossier. And what she is referring to is an article that her husband Keith Koffler had written for Fox News, which is this article right here, and it says Biden tries to claim credit for ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. We've held intensive high-level discussions hour by hour, literally, and pretty much went over some of the things that I had mentioned in that article from Rebecca Koffler, but Keith goes on to say Biden vowed to help Israel replenish its Iron Dome system and to work with the Palestinian Authority to rebuild Gaza. Biden said he'd spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on the ceasefire and commended him on his decision to bring hostilities to a close. The United States fully supports Israel's right to defend itself against indiscriminate rocket attacks from Hamas, Biden said. Biden said that the Prime Minister had also shared his appreciation for the Iron Dome system. Israel's missile defense that was built with help from the U.S. Biden said the system has saved the lives of countless Israeli citizens, Arab and Jew. I assured him of my full support to replenish Israel's Iron Dome system to ensure its defenses and security in the future, Biden said. Biden said he'd also spoken with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who is a member of the Fatah party rather than Hamas. I send my sincere condolences to all the families, Israeli and Palestinian, who've lost loved ones, and my hope of a full recovery for the wounded, he continued. The United States committed to working with the United Nations, and we remain committed to working with the United Nations and other international stakeholders to provide rapid humanitarian response or assistance and to marshal international support for the people of Gaza and the Gaza reconstruction efforts. Excuse me. We do this in full partnership with the Palestinian Authority, not Hamas, Palestinian Authority, in a manner that does not permit Hamas to simply restock its military arsenal. The deadly fighting that erupted after heightened tensions left at least 12 Israelis and 230 Palestinians dead in the crossfire in the worst breakout of violence since the 2014 Gaza war, according to experts, or according to reports. Hamas has fired more than 4,000 rockets into Israel over the past 11 days in response to a clash between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters, and the IDF struck back with devastating airstrikes. Now, interestingly enough, Israel has had this battle ever since it became a nation in 1948, where first with Egypt, then with Jordan, and a few others. In 1967, Israel had taken the West Bank of Jerusalem away from Jordan, all in an effort to solidify itself. But yeah, so it's a very intense, interesting thing that's happening over there, and one that I'm definitely keeping eyes on, especially in light of the Bible and end times prophecy. But yeah, and there's this from the Washington Free Bacon. The revolution comes for Israel. This is a column by Matthew Cuttinetti. What makes this war different and disturbing Israel has battled Hamas 4 times since the terror organization seized control of the Gaza Strip in 2007. Each battle unfolds the same way. Hamas launches rockets at Israel's civilian population. Israel bombs Hamas targets, and the fighting continues until terrorist infrastructure is sufficiently degraded so that the rocket fire stops for a few years. Israelis call it mowing the lawn. The last major clash was in 2014, and its origins, order of battle, and strategy and tactics. Operation Guardian of the Walls, which began May 10, resembles these previous flare-ups, so it's different just about everything. The region has changed. In 2014, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, legitimizing the nuclear plan of Israel's archenemy Iran, was a gleam in John Kerry's eye. Its adoption the following year and America's withdrawal from the agreement in 2018 realigned the Middle East along the axis of Iranian power. The result was an Arab Israel détente formed in the 2020 Abraham Accords. From a regional perspective, the Palestinian cause is less important than Iran's ambitions. Israel has changed. In 2014, Benjamin Netanyahu was at the outset of his third term and led from a position of strength. His indictment on corruption charges in 2019 initiated a political crisis that has led to 4 elections, and most likely a 5th in the space of 2 years. On the eve of the latest violence, Israel's bewildering politics became even more surprising when 2 of Netanyahu's rivals enticed an Arab Islamist party to join a coalition government. That effort collapsed when the rockets blazed. The subsequent outbreak of intercommunal violence in cities with large Arab Israel populations is a reminder of Israel's pressing domestic challenges. The security issue unites Israel, just about everything else divides it. America has changed. In the summer of 2014, Barack Obama was a lame duck. The Republicans controlled the House and were on the verge of winning the Senate. And Donald Trump was the host of Celebrity Apprentice. Obama's dislike of Netanyahu and willingness to expose daylight between the United States and Israel was no secret. But anti-Israeli invective was limited to the fringe, and anti-Israel media bias was nowhere near as bad as it is today. Then came the Great Awakening. The dialectic of Black Lives Matter and Donald Trump drove the nation into its current obsession with race, culminating in the protests, riots, vandalism, cancellations, and iconoclasm that followed the murder of George Floyd one year ago. The Trump years brought a revolutionary fervor to American politics, radicalizing the left and burdening the rest of us with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her anti-Israel socialist squad of congressional Democrats. The squad shares an all-encompassing woke mindset that collapses individuals and events into a reductive binary of oppressor and oppressed. When the squad looks at Israel and Hamas, it cannot see anything other than critical race theory. And so this emboldened left draws disgustingly false equivalences between American racial minorities and Palestinians. It slanders Israel as an apartheid state. It demands America stop a planned weapons sale to Israel in the middle of our allies' offensive against terrorists supplied by Iran. It says President Biden is taking orders from the Jewish Prime Minister. Now, what the squad lacks in numbers, it makes up for in noise. Its members exploit social media, show up on MSNBC, and amplify the hostility to Israel already thick on college campuses and in progressive enclaves. Its allies fill the op-ed pages with similar dreck, catering to their audience for politically correct left-wing clickbait. The polemical onslaught is false and obnoxious, but it gets results, driving an Israel-shaped wedge into the Democrat Party and forcing Biden to step up his calls for a ceasefire. The unappeasable hostility is a problem for Israel, for America, and for the Democrat Party. It makes me wonder if the head of the DNC has checked in lately with his British counterpart. There hasn't been a Labour Prime Minister since 2010, and Labour just experienced another drubbing in local elections. Labour's current leader has been trying to salvage his party's reputation from the wreckage of his far-left anti-Semitic predecessor, Jeremy Corbyn. It's a struggle. Explanation? Under Corbyn, Labour went hard left, abandoning its traditional working-class constituency for progressive social and cultural issues. that appeal to the university crowd in the very online but turn off everything else. Corbyn opposed Brexit, supported high levels of immigration, embraced political correctness, and tolerated the worst of anti-Semitism in his campaigns against Israel. The Socialist International became the Socialist Intersectional, Jews excluded. The process is well underway here, not content with tearing down America, and energized by the Cultural Revolution of 2020, the Jacobins turned their gaze on the Jewish state. Anti-Semitism dogged the anti-Trump Women's March. Black Lives Matter, which recently tweeted its advocacy for Palestinian liberation, no mention of Hamas's genocidal intent, supports the anti-Semitic boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib require no introduction. Comedian Trevor Noah irresponsibly likens no Hamas to a powerless 4-year-old. The haters can't believe their success. Someone needs to disappoint them. As long as Hamas remains in power, Israel will be forced to defend itself. The Jewish state's position in American politics cannot be allowed to deteriorate further, not just for Israel's sake, but for ours. And that's totally true. I mean, we have a lot of anti-Israeli sentiment in Washington, D.C., in Washington overall. And as the Bible says, those who bless it, God will bless those who bless Israel. And there has been no truer friend to Israel than the United States of America, and vice versa. But there's also this from the Associated Press. Israel-Hamas agreed to ceasefire to end bloody 11-day war. Israel and Hamas agreed to a ceasefire on Thursday, halting a bruising 11-day war that caused widespread destruction in the Gaza Strip, brought life in much of Israel to a standstill, and left more than 20 people dead. At 2 a.m. local time, just as the ceasefire took effect, life returned to the streets of Gaza. People went out of their homes, some shouting Allahu Akbar or whistling from balconies. Many fired in the air, celebrating the truce. Like the 3 previous wars between the bitter enemies, the latest round of fighting ended inconclusively. Israel claimed to inflict heavy damage on Hamas, but was once again unable to halt the Islamic militant group's non-stop rocket barrages. Now, almost immediately, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faced angry accusations from his hardline right-wing base that he stopped the opposition too soon. Hamas, the Islamic militant group sworn to Israel's destruction, also claimed victory, but now it faces the daunting challenge of rebuilding in a territory already suffering from poverty, widespread unemployment, and a raging coronavirus outbreak. Netanyahu's office said his security cabinet had unanimously accepted an Egyptian ceasefire proposal after recommendations from Israel's military chief and other top security officials. A statement boasted of significant achievements in the operation, some of which are unprecedented. It also included a real threat against Hamas. The political leaders emphasized that the reality on the ground will determine the future of the campaign, the statement said. The fighting erupted on May 10 when Hamas militants in Gaza fired long-range rockets toward Jerusalem. The barrage came after days of clashes between Palestinian protesters and Israeli police at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Heavy-handed police tactics at the compound, built on a site holy to Muslims and Jews, and the threatened eviction of dozens of Palestinians by Jewish settlers had inflamed tensions. The competing claims to Jerusalem lie at the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and have repeatedly triggered bouts of violence in the past. Hamas and other militant groups fired over 4,000 rockets into Israel throughout the fighting, launching the projectiles from civilian areas at Israeli cities. Dozens of projectiles flew as far north as Tel Aviv, the country's bustling commercial and cultural capital. Thousands gathered Friday morning in the southern Gaza Strip town of Khan Younis outside the family house of Mohammed Dief, the shadowy Hamas commander who had ordered the rocket strikes. Supporters shouted victory and waved green Hamas flags. Israel, meanwhile, carried out hundreds of airstrikes targeting what it said was Hamas's military infrastructure, including a vast tunnel network. At least 230 Palestinians were killed, including 65 children and 39 women, with 1,710 people wounded, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, which does not break the numbers down into fighters and civilians. 12 people in Israel, including a 5-year-old boy and 16-year-old girl, were killed. The United States, Israel's closest and most important ally, initially backed what it said was Israel's right to self-defense against indiscriminate rocket fire, but as the fighting dragged on and the death toll mounted, the Americans increasingly pressured Israel to stop the offensive. In a rare public rift, Netanyahu on Wednesday publicly rebuffed a public call from President Joe Biden to wind things down, appearing determined to inflict maximum damage on Hamas in a war that could save his political career. But late Thursday, Netanyahu's office announced a ceasefire agreement. Hamas quickly followed suit. Militants continued to launch sporadic rockets at Israel early Friday before the 2 a.m. ceasefire took effect. In Washington, Biden hailed the ceasefire. I believe we have a genuine opportunity to make progress, and I'm committed to working for it, he said. Biden said that the U.S. was committed to helping Israel replenish its supply of interceptor missiles for its Iron Dome rocket defense system and working with the internationally recognized Palestinian Authority, not Hamas, to provide humanitarian aid to Gaza. Netanyahu quickly came under heavy criticism from members of his hawkish national base. Gideon Saar, a former ally who now leads a small party opposed to the prime minister, called the ceasefire embarrassing and a potentially damaging development for the Israeli leader. The Palestinian militants claimed Netanyahu had agreed to halt further Israeli actions at the Al-Aqsa Mosque and to call up the planned evictions of Palestinians in the nearby Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. An Egyptian official said only that tensions in Jerusalem will be addressed. He spoke on condition of anonymity because he was discussing behind-the-scenes negotiations and provided no details. Itamar Ben-Gvir, head of the far-right Jewish Power Party, tweeted that the ceasefire was a grave surrender to terrorism and the dictates of Hamas. The ceasefire comes at a sensitive time for Netanyahu. In the wake of an inconclusive election in March, Netanyahu failed to form a majority coalition in parliament. His opponents now have until June 2nd to form an alternative government of their own. The war quickly complicated the efforts of his opponents, who include both Jewish and Arab parties, and were forced to suspend their negotiations in such a fraught environment. But the inconclusive outcome of the war could give them renewed momentum to restart these talks. Meanwhile, in Gaza, Hamas spokesman Abdulatif al-Kano said Israel's announcement was a declaration of defeat. Nevertheless, the group said it would honor the deal, which was to officially go into effect at 2 a.m. Ali Barake, an official with Islamic Jihad, a smaller group that fought alongside Hamas, said Israel's declaration of a truce was a defeat for Netanyahu and a victory for the Palestinian people. Despite the claims, both groups appear to have suffered significant losses in the fighting. Hamas and Islamic Jihad said at least 20 of their fighters were killed, while Israel said the number was at least 130 and probably higher. Some 58,000 fled their homes, many of them seeking shelter in crowded United Nations schools at a time of a coronavirus outbreak. Since the fighting began, Gaza's infrastructure, already weakened by a 14-year blockade, has rapidly deteriorated. Medical supplies, water, and fuel for electricity are running low in the territory on which Israel and Egypt imposed a blockade after Hamas seized power from the Palestinian Authority in 2007. Since then, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has governed autonomous areas of the Israeli-occupied West Bank and has limited influence in Gaza. Israeli attacks have also damaged at least 18 hospitals and clinics and destroyed one health facility. The World Health Organization said nearly half of all essential drugs have run out. Israeli bombing has damaged over 50 schools across the territory, according to advocacy group Save the Children, destroying at least 6. Now, while repairs are done, education will be disrupted for nearly 42,000 children. And there's also this from PJ Media. It says that Israel had declared a ceasefire. It says Israel approves ceasefire. Will Hamas keep it? And I had accidentally hit the close button, but here it is. Oops. And Israel approves ceasefire. Will Hamas keep it? By Tyler O'Neill. And it says the Israeli Security Cabinet unanimously voted to accept a ceasefire on Thursday evening, so long as Hamas honors the agreement. Channel 12 News Israel reported the ceasefire is likely to begin Thursday night after Egyptian authorities negotiated between Israel and Hamas. The Israeli Defense Forces will stop its attacks in the Gaza Strip at 2 a.m. on Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday night, according to the agreement. If Hamas continues to fire rockets at Israel, however, the IDF will resume the attack and the ceasefire will be cancelled. Israel has promised that it will be able to convince Hamas to stop firing rockets. It remains to be seen whether or not Hamas will agree to the ceasefire. The current conflict began after Palestinian protesters violently attacked Israeli police while protesting in an Israeli Supreme Court case that will likely uphold the lawful eviction of squatters who refused to pay rent after they agreed to acknowledge a Jewish land claim over their homes. The protesters attacked police who responded with crowd control measures that injured hundreds. Hamas responded by firing thousands of rockets into Israel. The Iron Dome interceptor system has blocked the vast majority of the rockets, but the attacks have killed at least 10 people in Israel, including 2 children. Israel has responded with rockets of their own, and Gaza has reported that at least 230 Palestinians were killed, including 65 children. The Israeli Defense Force, or IDF, has claimed to have killed several Hamas commanders in the strikes. According to the IDF, many of Hamas's rockets have backfired, so the Palestinian terrorist group may be responsible for many of the deaths in the Gaza Strip. Israel has claimed that Hamas misfired 350 rockets in the first 3 days, killing innocent civilians in Gaza. Now, before Israel sends precision strike rockets, it first warns occupants of the targeted building, allowing people time to leave before destroying buildings that allegedly house Hamas weapons and intelligence. Hamas gives no such warnings to Israeli targets. Eugene Kantorovich, an Israeli scholar at the Antonin Scalia School of Law at George Mason University, explained the situation well. International law requires all combatants, Israel and Hamas, to adhere to the principle of distinction. Now, distinction means military and civilian forces need to be separated and clearly marked so that both sides can target each other's military without killing civilians. Mixing the military amongst the civilians, putting military targets, military institutions, or installations, rocket facilities in or in proximity to civilian targets, itself is a violation of the law of war, and that's what Hamas is doing, Kantorovich explained. On the other hand, in fighting a war, the law of war and the Geneva Conventions understand that it's impossible to have a war without civilian casualties, and the rule is those civilian casualties need to be proportionate to the military objective. Right now, Israel has destroyed much of Hamas's capabilities, and the civilian casualties, while regrettable, are both proportionate and a direct result of Hamas using civilians as human shields, he added. Now, while the ceasefire may give grounds for hopes that the conflict is drawing to a close, the key issue is not whether or not Israel will back down, but how high a cost is Hamas willing to pay to keep attacking Israel. Will Hamas decide that it has lost enough military bases and terrorist allies and decide to stop the attacks? Or will the terrorist group continue to violate international law, thinking the world will support its attacks against Israel? And that's that. Now things are getting heated up everywhere. I'm keeping an eye to to that situation, as the Middle East is a definite firestorm. Leave a comment down below what do you think about the ceasefire. Do you think Israel should continue attacking? Do you think Hamas is in the right? Do you think Israel was in the right? Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next video. And that's going to do it for the news for this week. I am Bulow. Again, if you like what you watch, please go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Also subscribe and tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell an enemy or two even. And I will be back next week. Until next time, peace.